a British journalist, went to Africa to pursue the path of polio vaccinations. He was convinced that Kaprowski used the SIV-carrying chimpanzees to make his polio vaccine. During 17 years, he interviewed hundreds of participants and observers of the period and collected thousands of relevant documents. In 1999, Hooper published the results of his research in a book of more than 1,000 pages, and once again, the scientific community was rocked.
Good evening. Could AIDS have been accidentally caused by scientists? A new book claims HIV has its origins in apes and monkeys and was passed on to humans when scientists in Africa used primate tissue in a mass vaccination campaign against polio. I'll be asking the book's author whether his allegations stand up.
AIDS came about as an act of man, not as an act of God. An experimental oral polio vaccine that was prepared, I believe, in chimpanzee kidneys and chimpanzee blood, and which was fed to over 1 million Africans in the Belgian Congo, in Rwanda and in Burundi between 1957 and 1960, correlates so precisely with the first appearances of AIDS that I think what we have here is the route whereby this chimpanzee virus arrived in humans.
The intensity of the debate and the depth of Hooper's research forced Hilary Kaprowski to respond.
The tissue which I used were kidneys obtained either monkeys from Philippines or from India, which was rhesus monkey, this is the normal term, and there are two other species, Macaca mulata, I forgot the name of the species from Philippines. And this is documented in print.
So you never used chimpanzees to...
Oh, never in my life.
Oddly, there were no existing documents showing how Kaprowski made his chat vaccine. But archived footage from Kaprowski's chimp facility can shed some light.
Au Congo belge, le camp de polio, dirigé par le docteur Courtois, compte 86 chimpanzés sur lesquels on pratique régulièrement des essais en injectant le vaccin anti-polio inventé en 1947 par le docteur Kaprowski. Les animaux sont placés dans des cages dont une des parois est mobile et permet d'approcher plus facilement les singes pour les injections hypodermiques. Ainsi se poursuit une lutte implacable contre une des plus terribles maladies non encore vaincues.
So Kaprowski's research camp did house chimpanzees, and was in fact one of the largest chimp facilities ever created to date.
Well over 400 chimpanzees were brought to Lindy Camp in the space of less than 2 years between 1956 and 1958, and that with one or two notable exceptions, animals which were favourites, which were treated as pets, that every single one of these chimpanzees ended up dead. The question has to be, why were they killed?
Hooper found an ally for his theory. Bill Hamilton was a renowned scientist, the most important evolutionary biologist since Darwin. And Hamilton felt there was a 95% chance that this theory was correct.
Is there a possibility here scientists simply don't want to know, don't want to accept perhaps at least the moral, if not the legal liability for what has been done, for the AIDS virus?
I feel that this is so, and as one of the most worrying aspects of the case, I feel it's not only the origin of AIDS that is in question here, it is the conduct of science towards this hypothesis, which has been one of almost paranoid rejection, I would say. I think I would not exaggerate to describe it as medical science's worst hated hypothesis, and there seems to be a great reluctance to publish anything about it or to test any of the available evidence that could be more directly tested.
Listen now to the voice of the world's leading vaccine expert, Dr. Maurice Hilleman, chief of the Merck Pharmaceutical Company's vaccine division, relay this problem he was having with imported monkeys. He best explains the origin of AIDS, but what you are about to hear was cut from any public disclosures.
And I think that vaccines have to be considered the bargain basement technology for the 20th century.
50 years ago, when Morris Hilleman was a high school student in Miles City, Montana, he hoped he might qualify as a management trainee for the local J.C. Penney store. Instead, he went on to pioneer more breakthroughs in vaccine research and development than anyone in the history of American medicine. Among the discoveries he made at Merck are vaccines for mumps, rubella, and measles.
Tell me how you found SV40 in the polio vaccine.
Well, that was a Merck thing. Okay. Yeah, I came to Merck, and I was going to develop vaccines. And we had wild viruses in those days. Remember the wild monkey kidney viruses and so forth. And I finally, after 6 months, gave up. I said that you cannot develop vaccines with these damn monkeys. We're finished. And if I can't do something about it, I'm going to quit. I'm going to try it. So I went down to see Bill Mann at the zoo in Washington, D.C. And I told Bill Mann, I said, look, I got a problem. I don't know what the hell we're doing. Bill Mann is a very bright guy. I said, these lousy monkeys are picking it up while being stored in the airports in transit at these loading, offloading, loading. He said, very simple. He said, you go ahead, get your monkeys out of West Africa, get the African green, bring them into Madrid, unload them there. There are no other traffic through there for animals. Fly them into Philadelphia, pick them up. Or fly them into New York and pick them up right off the airplane. So I brought African greens in. I didn't know we were importing AIDS virus at the time.
And it was you who introduced AIDS virus to the country. It was you who introduced AIDS virus to the country. It was you who introduced AIDS virus to the country.
Became a real story.
Merck will do to develop a vaccine. Merck will do to develop a vaccine. Merck will do to develop a vaccine.
So what he did, he brought in, we brought in those monkeys. Now we had those. And this was the solution. Because those monkeys didn't have the wild viruses. But we had all of these.
Why didn't the greens have the wild viruses since they came from Africa?
Because they weren't, they weren't being infected in these group holding things with all the other 40 different viruses.
But they had the ones they brought from the jungle, though.
Yeah, they had those, but there were relatively few. What you do is you have a gang housing, you're going to have an epidemic transmission of infection in a confined space.
Oh, is that the problem?
So, anyway, the greens came in. Now we had these, and then we're taking our seed stocks to clean them up, and God, now I'm discovering new viruses. So I said, Judas Priest. Well, I got an invitation from the Sister Kinney Foundation, which was the opposing foundation, and that was the live virus.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they had jumped on Sabin's bandwagon. And they had asked me to come down and give a talk at the Sister Kinney Foundation meeting. And I said, it was an international meeting. I thought, God, what am I going to talk about? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the detection of non-detectable viruses as a topic.
There were those who didn't want a live virus vaccine. They concentrated. The National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis concentrated all its efforts on getting more and more people to use the killed virus vaccine, while they were supporting me for research on the live virus vaccine.
So now I got to have something, that's going to attract attention. So I thought, gee, that damn SV40, that vacculating agent that we have, I'm going to just pick that particular one. That virus has got to be in vaccines, and it's got to be in Sabin's vaccine, so I quickly tested it. Sure enough, it was in there. And
I'll be damned.
so now, so I go ahead and...
So So you just took stocks of Sabin's vaccine off the shelf here at Merck?
Yeah, well, that had not been made at Merck. It was made at Merck.
You were making it for Sabin at this point?
Yeah, it was made before I came.
Yeah, but at this point, Sabin is still just doing these massive field trials.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In Russia and so forth. So I go down and I talked about the detection of non-detectable virus. And I told Albert...
But at this point, Sabin is still just doing these massive field trials.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In Russia and so forth. So I go down and I talked about the detection of non-detectable virus. And I told Albert, I said, listen, Albert, I said, you know, you and I are good friends. But I said, I'm going to go down there and you're going to get upset. I'm going to talk about a virus that's in your vaccine. Now, you're going to get rid of the virus. Don't worry about it. You're going to get rid of it. But, so of course, Albert was very upset with me.
What did he say?
Well, he said basically that this is just another obfuscation that is going to upset vaccines. And I said, well, you know, you're absolutely right. But I said, we have a new era here. We have a new era of a detection. And the important thing is to get rid of these viruses.
Why would he call it an obfuscation if it was a virus that was contaminating
the
vaccine?
Because, there are 40 different viruses in these vaccines anyway that we were inactivating. And...
but you weren't inactivating his, though.
That's correct. No, that's right. But yellow fever vaccine had leukemia virus in it, and, you know, this is in the days of very crude science. So anyway, I went down and talked to him, and Albert said, well, why are you concerned about it? I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, I have a feeling in my bones that this virus is different. I don't know why to tell you this, but I've been around biology a long time. I just think this virus may have some long-term effects. And he said, what? I said, well, cancer.
I love it. I love it. Go ahead.
No. I said, Albert, you probably think I'm nuts, but I just have that feeling. Well, in the meantime, we had taken this virus and put it into into hamsters. So we had this meeting, and that was sort of the topic of the day, and the jokes that were going around was, gee, we would win the Olympics because the Russians would all be loaded down with tumors. This is where the vaccine was being tested. This was
right. Right.
So, and it really destroyed the meeting. You know, it was a big international.
Yeah, right.
So it was sort of a topic. No. Anyway.
Was this the Cancer Society meeting in New York?
No, this was the Sister Kenning.
Oh, it's Sister Kenning. Right.
And Del Becco got up and said that he foresaw problems with these kinds of